The Asics Superblast 2 and the Asics Novablast 4. Two shoes that don't really compete with one another, instead they complement each other extremely well. Usually these comparison videos or versus videos on this channel are me putting two shoes against one another and telling you which one's going to be the better option. However, in this case, these two shoes really complement one another, and I think they're designed to work together. Now, if you're looking for the versus version of this video, I already made that video. I'll put a link in the description. I made it last winter when I compared the original Superblast to the Novablast 4. And when I rewatched that video, there's not anything I'm really going to change with the Superblast 2 that I didn't already say in that video. So now I really do think in the 2024 Asics lineup, these two shoes are meant to be in very different places and meant to work together as a unit. And always with these videos, let's start with the specs. And I think looking at the specs really tells you how these two shoes differ. From a stack height standpoint, the Novablast 4 is slightly lower, though I still would consider it a max cushion shoe. The drop is the same, but I will say the drop in the Novablast 4 feels more like 8, maybe 10. You are put up on your toes a little bit more in that shoe, where in the Superblast 2, the drop definitely feels 5 to 8. It feels much flatter in that shoe. The weight of the Novablast 4 is 10 grams heavier, but you're not really going to feel that. And I think that also speaks to just how lightweight the Superblast 2 actually is, especially for a shoe of that size. It's a big shoe. I think the biggest difference here is really in the ride, where I would describe the Superblast 2 as an energetic ride. That's mostly because of FF Turbo Plus, Asics' new super foam that's in that shoe. You get some cushion, you get some sink, but you get a lot of energy return, a high resiliency ride to that shoe. The Novablast 4, because it's all FF Blast plus Eco, which is Asics' training foam, is a soft ride. It's a very cushioned ride. You definitely sink into that, and there isn't a lot of energy return out of that foam. And that's fine, because that's what you really want in a trainer. You want something that's a little bit easier to handle and something that's going to be a lot broader in its use case, where the Superblast 2 is really meant for a lot more speedier efforts. And looking at the outsoles and contact patch of these two shoes, the Novablast 4 is actually a very wide, very stable shoe with as soft and squishy as the FF Blast plus Eco Foam in the Novablast can be. I think Asics has really widened that platform out to make it as stable as they possibly can. But you see the Superblast 2 is actually wider. I will say, because of the more premium foam, the FF Turbo Plus super foam that's in the Superblast 2, even though the Superblast 2 is a little bit wider, it feels more nimble, and that just speaks to the platform and the super foam that's in that shoe. And looking at the rubber coverage of both these shoes, they both have the Blast outsole pattern. Now, this outsole pattern is something Asics has been very particular to stick with in these Blast shoes. And I think what they're trying to do is make a very compliant feel on the ground, because they have a lot of exposed foam on these shoes. Though I think for both generations of these shoes, especially the Novablast, the amount of rubber coverage and the amount of rubber that's actually on that shoe is now the appropriate amount. And from a grip standpoint, I don't have any problems with either one of these shoes, though the tread pattern on the Superblast 2 is probably going to work better for more surfaces than the Novablast 4. Moving to the fit of these two shoes, I would say the fit is, from a length standpoint, very similar between these two shoes, if not identical. I went true to size in both of these. These are both US men's size 9, which is the size I wear in pretty much every shoe. And from a length standpoint, they fit nearly identical on my foot. However, from a width standpoint, I think this one, the Novablast 4, is slightly tighter, but I think a lot of that comes down to the woven uppers on both of these. This is a much more open, breathable woven upper, or engineered mesh, where this is a much tighter woven upper that definitely wraps around the foot a little bit tighter. Also, I think because of the construction of these and how the upper is bonded to the midsole, I think also makes these two shoes differ slightly in how they feel. Now, with the Novablast, you can see that there's a large portion of foam in the forefoot of the shoe that kind of stick out. There's outriggers in this shoe. And I think that pushes the upper material inward in the shoe. And you can kind of see that. It kind of pushes it forward. I think that takes a little volume out of this area, the toe area in the lateral side of the shoe. I do get some pinky toe and fourth toe rub on this shoe right in this area. It's not ever been any big problem. It's not ever been anything that's really caused me to stop running in the shoe. I just get a little pressure there. Additionally, the volume across the knuckles of the foot is just a little bit tighter. And again, I think that's just how this upper is bonded to the midsole. Whereas on the Superblast, because this material is just, I think it's going to stretch more, and it's just much more open of a woven material, I'm not getting any of those pressure points in this shoe. I'm not getting any sort of toe rub here, and the volume overall in the shoe feels much better, feels much more what I would expect from a training upper. It's not to say that this isn't a good upper. This is a great upper. It's a very comfortable upper. And I think from a lockdown standpoint, I think the midfoot lockdown is very similar in these shoes. And the heel lockdown is very similar, though I think it achieves it very differently. As you can see, the Achilles flare in the Superblast 2 is a little bit lower, and it does make my Achilles a little red. Not a blister, not a cut, just a little redness. Whereas the Achilles flare on the Novablast 4 is much more traditional, much higher. I've never gotten any of that. But the heel pocket and the heel counter in both these shoes is very similar, so the lockdown is very similar. Overall, I think both these shoes fit extremely well. And if you run in the Novablast 4, I would definitely say try the same size in the Superblast 2 and then work from there. This is a true daily trainer, where this is a long run trainer. This is meant for race build. If you're going to go race probably a half or full marathon, this is a shoe to do those long runs with a lot of speed in them, a lot of race pace in them. You can do easy running in this shoe, but it's not designed for that. And if you're buying this as a dedicated easy run shoe, it's going to feel a little harsh. It's going to feel a little firm. Plenty of people use this as a daily trainer, but that's not what this shoe is designed for. If you want a daily trainer, the softer, more rolly FF Blast Plus midsole is going to be much more comfortable. This is going to be much better suited for a wider range of paces from easy into tempo, maybe a little threshold, though if you're getting into threshold running, you're going to want to step up to the Superblast 2. But this is just the more comfortable all-arounder, where this is really a training tool. And I think the best way to illustrate this difference is to map these two shoes in a rotation. Let's build an Asics rotation around these two shoes. Now, when I'm building a rotation, I'm really looking for these 3 or 4 categories. A trainer, sometimes I want a cushion trainer, a fast shoe, one to do workouts in, and a race shoe, one to maximize all that work on race day, and sometimes to also do fast workouts in. So starting with the Novablast 4, that shoe really sits here as a trainer. It kind of spans the cushioned and trainer or daily trainer category. And in fact, in other rotation videos I've done, I've put the Novablast 4 as a cushion trainer, but for the sake of this video, this is your trainer. This is your do anything, go anywhere shoe. It just happens to be a little bit more cushion, a little bit higher stack, a little bit more rolly. It's kind of what a lot of people like, but it definitely is a very all-purpose shoe. Whereas the Superblast 2 is a shoe that really spans the categories of fast and race. Now, it's designed as a fast shoe. It's a long-run trainer. In a marathon build, those runs between 16 and 32K, or about 10 to 20 miles, those are your kind of core long runs in a marathon build. And the length of them will change based on where you are in that build. Now, this shoe is specific to that type of work because in those long runs, you're generally going between easy running and race pace running. So you need a shoe that can do both. The Novablast can do that, but the Superblast is really designed to do that because you're not sacrificing anything when you're actually doing your marathon pace work within that longer run. So that's really what the Superblast is designed to do. And for a lot of people, this rotation of these two shoes, you're good to go because you've got your trainer. It happens to be very cushioned. And if you want a shoe that's a little bit faster, maybe you jump into the occasional race, but you're not really going for any sort of PR. You just sort of want to complete it comfortably. Really any distance, 5K to a full marathon, though I think the Superblast is probably ideal for 10K and above. This Superblast is going to be an awesome shoe for faster running and the occasional race. You're good to go here. You've got your trainer, your daily trainer, and you've got your fast or long run trainer, or some people would even call it a tempo trainer. And I think this distinction also makes a distinction with the pricing. That's why the Novablast 4 is $140 USD, because it's a daily trainer, cushion trainer, however you want to look at that, but it is meant for general purpose running. It's a trainer. Whereas the Superblast 2 at $200 USD is meant to be a tempo trainer or fast run trainer, even a race shoe in many instances. And in fact, I even think of the Superblast as a true super shoe. A lot of people also call it a super trainer. I go one step beyond that. I treat it like a super shoe. So $200 USD for a super shoe puts it kind of on the lower end of that spectrum. But this is why there's such a pricing difference between these two shoes, because they're really different categories. So this two shoe rotation of a Novablast 4 and a Superblast 2, as I said, most people are probably going to be pretty good here. But if you want to go to the next step really is to add in an Asics Metaspeed. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you add in the sky or the edge. It really comes down to feel. And if you don't know how to choose which one, I've already made a video about that. There'll be a link in the description to that video. I recommend to go check that out if you're trying to decide between the two shoes. But I will say that between the Novablast 4 and the Superblast, the Metaspeed that's probably going to feel more natural to you if you've never run in a Metaspeed is probably going to be the sky. Though I run in the edge, and I have no problem transitioning from the Superblast 2 to the edge. So which Metaspeed you choose is really going to come down to what type of feel you want. And again, I have a whole video on that, link in the description. But now between these three shoes, you have your trainer, you have your fast shoe, and you have your race shoe, you are pretty much good to go for any type of training, for any type of road racing. But if you're really looking to optimize this rotation, I think there's one more shoe from the Asics lineup that you need to look at, and that is the Hyperspeed 4. Now, I don't think this shoe is very popular. Not a lot of people know that this shoe even exists, but this is the true tempo trainer that's now in the Asics lineup. Asics used to have the Magic Speed 3, which last year was probably the best tempo trainer out last year, and probably one of the best tempo trainers ever made. But with the update to the Magic Speed 4, Asics has now turned the Magic Speed from a very good, probably the best tempo trainer, into just another generic super trainer, which doesn't really serve its purpose anymore. Because the purpose of a super trainer is to be something you can either run daily in or do some of that race pace, faster running. And if that's what you want the shoe for, the Superblast 2 is going to outperform that shoe in every single instance. So the Magic Speed 4 really doesn't need to exist, which means the Hyperspeed 4 now is the true tempo trainer in the Asics lineup. And it's a very simple shoe. There's no plate in it. It's just flight foam. It's a very basic kind of racing flat shoe. But if you are a marathoner who does a lot of 200s, 400s, 800s, and you're looking for a non-plated shoe, because you can do a lot of that work in the Metaspeed, having a Hyperspeed that's non-plated is going to be a really good option. If you're a person who runs 5Ks primarily, maybe 10Ks, and you're doing a lot more speed work, the Metaspeed is also a great shoe for that. But again, to have a non-plated option to do a lot of that work in addition to the Metaspeed, is also going to be really valuable. So that's where the Hyperspeed 4 really fits in here and really finishes out this full rotation. So the Novablast 4 is your daily all-arounder, a little bit more cushioned here. The Superblast 2 is your long-run trainer. It's something you're doing a lot of race pace in between some easy running. Your Metaspeed is your race shoe, and the Hyperspeed is sort of your interval speed work shoe. Additionally, you can probably do a little easy running in the Hyperspeed. It's a great shoe for a long range of stuff. Hopefully that explains the differences between these two shoes, but also how they work together. So if you're someone that's new coming into the Asics lineup, I think starting with these two shoes together is probably going to be your best bet. But if you have any further questions about these two shoes, let me know in the comments. I will reply to everything that I possibly can. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.